4 words on their wedding night. Do not question me. A terrified bride, a broken duke hiding unbearable pain behind cold commands. She thought she'd married a monster, until she discovered the violin, the tears, and the truth he'd buried for 20 years. But by the time he realized what he'd lost, it might already be too late. Before we begin, if you want to know how one woman melted the coldest heart in Scotland and turned a duke's command into a desperate confession of love, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because this Regency romance will break your heart before it heals it. Maya Benson had always believed in love. She'd grown up on stories of passionate courtships, grand gestures, and matches made from genuine affection. Her parents had loved each other deeply before her mother's death, and she'd spent her entire life hoping to find that same connection. Instead, she got a contract. Her father's investments had failed catastrophically. The family faced complete financial collapse, loss of their home, their standing, everything. Then came the offer from the Duke of Ashford, marriage to Maya in exchange for settling all debts and securing her family's future. She'd never even met the Duke. What she knew of him came from whispers at society gatherings, cold as Scottish stone. Hasn't smiled in a decade. His first wife died under mysterious circumstances. That last one turned out to be false. He'd never been married, but it showed how fearsome his reputation was. On the day of their wedding, Maya stood in the chapel wearing her mother's altered dress, watching Jake Horton approach the altar. He was devastatingly handsome, tall, dark-haired, with sharp features and eyes the color of storm clouds. But his expression held no warmth, no tenderness, no acknowledgement that this was supposed to be a joyous occasion. The ceremony was brief, perfunctory. He spoke his vows with the enthusiasm of someone reading a business contract. When the vicar pronounced them married, Jake's kiss was so cold and quick it barely registered. The reception was worse. He stood beside her, acknowledging congratulations with curt nods, barely speaking to her at all. Maya felt like a piece of furniture he'd acquired. Expensive, perhaps, but ultimately just another possession. The carriage ride to his estate took 3 hours. They didn't speak once. As they approached Ashford Manor, Maya's breath caught. The estate was magnificent, a massive stone manor house set against rolling Scottish highlands, ancient and imposing, beautiful and terrifying in equal measure, just like her new husband. That night, after servants had shown her to the Duchess's chambers and helped her change into her nightgown, Maya waited, uncertain, afraid. Would he come to her room? What would he expect? At precisely 10 o'clock, there was a knock. Maya's heart hammered. Come in. Jake entered, now dressed in a burgundy robe over his clothes, his expression as cold as it had been all day. He stood near the door, making no move to approach her. I have come to establish the rules of this marriage, he said without preamble. Maya's hands twisted in her lap. Rules? Yes, first, you will manage the household as you see fit. Mrs. Hall will assist you. I do not concern myself with domestic matters. Second, you will not disturb me in my study. I work there and I require solitude. Third, you will attend social functions when required, but you need not engage with me beyond what propriety demands. Each word felt like a door closing, like walls being built. Fourth, he paused and something flickered in his eyes. Pain? Fear? It vanished so quickly Maya thought she'd imagined it. Do not question me about my past, my choices, or my feelings. This marriage is a business arrangement, nothing more. Maya felt tears prickling but refused to let them fall. She'd known this wouldn't be a love match, but the absolute coldness of it crushed something in her chest. Do you understand? He asked. Yes, Your Grace. Good. Your chambers and mine are separated by that door. He gestured to a connecting door she'd noticed earlier. It will remain locked unless I knock, which will be rarely and only when necessary to produce an heir. The clinical way he spoke about intimacy made Maya's stomach turn. Is there anything you wish to ask? He said. Do not question me. The words echoed. No, Your Grace. Then good night. He turned to leave. Jake, the name slipped through before she could stop it. He froze, spine rigid. Turned slowly. His expression was thunderous. It's Your Grace or Duke Horton, We are not familiar. His voice was ice. Remember that. He left, and Maya heard the connecting door lock from his side with a definitive click. She'd never felt more alone. But what Maya didn't know was that on the other side of that door, Jake Horton stood with his forehead pressed against the wood, fighting every instinct that screamed at him to go back, to apologize, to be the husband she deserved instead of the broken man he was. The first month of marriage was a study in loneliness. Maya woke alone, breakfasted alone, spent her days alone. Jake kept to his study or rode out across the estate for hours. When they did encounter each other, passing in hallways or at the occasional dinner, he was polite but distant, like she was a guest, not a wife. Mrs. Hall, the kind-faced housekeeper, became Maya's primary companion. "Don't take it personally, Your Grace," she said one afternoon while showing Maya the household accounts. "His Grace has been this way for years." "How many years?" Mrs. Hall hesitated, clearly weighing Jake's fourth rule against her compassion for Maya. "Since his mother died, he was 12. 20 years, 20 years of this coldness." "What was he like before?" Maya asked softly. "Bright, joyful. He loved music, laughter, exploring the estate. Lady Victoria doted on him. His mother, God rest her soul, she died of consumption, and it destroyed something in him. His father was never a warm man, and after Victoria passed, the old Duke became even harsher. Demanded Jake grow up, stop being emotional, learn to be a proper Duke. That's heartbreaking." "It is, but His Grace doesn't speak of it. Ever. Best not to mention it." "Do not question me." Maya tried to settle into her role. She reorganized the household, improved servant conditions, started a small garden, anything to feel useful. But at night, lying alone in her grand bed, she felt the weight of the loveless marriage crushing her. 3 weeks into her new life, Maya couldn't sleep. It was past midnight, and restlessness drove her from her chambers. She wrapped a shawl over her nightgown and wandered the manor's dark hallways with just a candle. Ashford Manor was beautiful but haunting at night, all shadows and echoes. Maya found herself in wings she hadn't explored yet, drawn by an inexplicable pull. Then she heard it, a violin playing something achingly beautiful and devastatingly sad. Maya followed the sound to a closed door at the end of a corridor. Light seeped beneath it. She knew she shouldn't. "Do not question me. Do not disturb me." But the music was so beautiful, so full of emotion, that she couldn't help herself. Maya slowly pushed the door open. The room was a music parlor. She'd been told it existed but was never used. A grand piano sat in one corner, sheets of music scattered across every surface. And in the center, Jake stood with a violin, eyes closed, playing with his entire soul. Maya had never seen him like this. The cold mask was gone. His face showed raw emotion, grief, longing, pain, beauty all mixed together. His body moved with the music, completely lost in it. She must have made a sound, a gasp, a step, because his eyes flew open. The music stopped abruptly. For 3 heartbeats, they just stared at each other. Then Jake's expression transformed. The vulnerability vanished, replaced by cold fury. "What are you doing here?" His voice was lethal. I heard music. I didn't mean to intrude." "Did I not make myself clear? You do not disturb me. You do not question." "I wasn't questioning. I was just, get out!" The roar was so sudden, so violent that Maya stumbled backward. Her candle fell, extinguishing. In the dim light from the parlor, Jake looked like a stranger, wild-eyed, chest heaving, the violin trembling in his white-knuckled grip. Maya turned and fled. She ran through the dark corridors, tears streaming, until she reached her chambers and locked the door. She collapsed against it, sobbing. That was the moment Jake Horton's fear cost him the one woman he could never live without. Jake didn't sleep that night. He stood in the music room, staring at the violin in his hands, his mother's violin, and hating himself. Maya's face haunted him, the fear in her eyes, the tears. He'd roared at her like a beast, terrified her, confirmed every horrible thing she probably believed about him. Why couldn't I just explain? Why can I never just be gentle? Because gentleness required vulnerability. And vulnerability led to pain. When his mother died, 12-year-old Jake had cried for days. His father had slapped him, told him dukes don't weep, demanded he stop being weak. Emotion is weakness. Control is strength. Never let anyone see what you feel. So Jake had learned to feel nothing, to be nothing. A cold, efficient duke who managed his estate with precision and his heart with iron chains. Until Maya walked into his life. From the moment he'd seen her at the altar, beautiful, kind-eyed, terrified but trying to be brave, something in him had cracked. He'd wanted to comfort her, to tell her it would be all right, to be the husband she deserved. Instead, he'd given her rules, distance, cold professionalism, because he was terrified. Terrified that if he let himself care about her, losing her would destroy him completely. Better to push her away first. But now he'd seen the damage of that strategy written across her tear-stained face. Maya avoided him completely after that night. She took breakfast in her room, spent her days in the garden or the library. When they passed in hallways, she'd curtsy and hurry away, eyes downcast. Jake told himself this was better, easier. It felt like dying. Sebastian Crawford visited 2 weeks later for his annual hunting trip. He took one look at Jake and frowned. "You look worse than usual," which is saying something. "I'm fine." "You're clearly not. What happened?" Jake shouldn't tell him, but Sebastian was the only person left from before the walls, before the coldness. "I married." Sebastian's eyebrows shot up. "I heard. Haven't met the new Duchess yet. Where is she?" "Avoiding me." "Ah, what did you do?" "Why do you assume I did something?" "Because I know you, Jake. You push people away before they can leave. It's your signature move." Jake wanted to argue but couldn't. "She found me playing violin in the music room. I reacted poorly." "Poorly how?" "I shouted at her, frightened her badly." Sebastian winced. "Christ, Jake." "I know. Do you? Because you're brilliant at business and managing estates, but you're rubbish at being human." Sebastian poured whiskey for both of them. "That girl left her entire life to marry you. The least you could do is not terrorize her." "I didn't mean to." "Intent doesn't matter. Impact does." Sebastian fixed him with a hard stare. "Your mother would be ashamed." The words hit like a physical blow. "That's not fair." "Isn't it? Lady Victoria loved you with her whole heart. She taught you music, encouraged your feelings, showed you what love looked like. And when she died, you buried all of that with her. Became exactly like your father, cold, closed, controlled. I had to survive. You had to thrive. She would have wanted you to live fully, love freely, feel everything. Instead, you've built a prison and called it protection." Jake's hands shook. "I can't do this, Sebastian. I don't know how." "Then learn. That girl didn't sign up to be married to a ghost." Sebastian stood, heading for the door. "I'm going to meet your wife. Try not to terrify any other household members while I'm gone." Sebastian found Maya in the garden sketching. "Your Grace," he said warmly, "I'm Lord Sebastian Crawford, an old friend of your husband's." Maya stood curtsying. "Lord Crawford, please call me Sebastian." "May I join you?" They sat on a bench and Sebastian studied her quietly. She was lovely. More importantly, she had kind eyes. Exactly the type of person Jake needed. "He's an idiot," Sebastian said without preamble. Maya blinked. "I beg your pardon?" "Jake, my friend, your husband, he's a complete idiot about emotions." "I shouldn't speak ill of his grace." "You don't have to. I'll do it for you." Sebastian smiled gently. "I've known Jake since we were boys. Before his mother died, he was the happiest child I'd ever met. After she passed, he became someone else. Someone scared." "Scared of what?" "Of feeling anything at all. Because his father taught him that emotion equals weakness and weakness equals pain." Maya's expression softened. "That's tragic." "It is, but it's also unfair to you." Sebastian met her eyes. "Whatever he did, and I'm guessing he shouted, shut you out or something similarly stupid. It wasn't about you. It's about his terror of being vulnerable." "That doesn't excuse." "No, it doesn't. But perhaps it explains." Sebastian stood. "Give him one more chance. Not because he deserves it, but because beneath all that ice is a good man desperate to get out. He just doesn't know how." That night, Maya couldn't stop thinking about Sebastian's words. A good man desperate to get out. Was it true, or was it wishful thinking? She was still awake at midnight when she heard it again. The violin. Softer this time, sadder. Maya wrapped her shawl around herself and, despite every instinct screaming at her to stay away, walked back to the music room. The door was open this time. Jake stood at the window, playing with his back to the door. He knew she was there. She could tell by the slight change in his posture, but he didn't stop. The music spoke of loneliness, of grief too deep for words, of yearning for connection he didn't know how to reach. When the piece ended, silence hung heavy. "My mother taught me," Jake said quietly, still facing the window. "Every evening after dinner, we'd come here. She'd play piano, I'd play violin. My father hated it, called it frivolous, but she insisted I needed beauty in my life, not just duty." Maya stayed silent, afraid that speaking would shatter this fragile moment. "When she died, I locked this room, didn't touch the violin for 15 years. Then one night I couldn't bear the silence anymore." He finally turned to face her. "This is the only place I can breathe, Maya." He'd used her name. "I'm sorry I intruded," she said softly. "I'm sorry I frightened you." His voice cracked. "I seem incapable of being anything other than cruel to the one person who deserves kindness." "You're not cruel, you're hurt." "Is there a difference?" "Yes, cruelty is chosen, pain is inflicted." Maya took a tentative step forward. "You didn't choose what happened to you as a child." "But I chose how I responded. I chose coldness, distance. I chose to make you miserable." "You didn't make me miserable. You made me lonely." "There's a difference." Jake laughed bitterly. "I've been alone so long, I don't know how to be anything else." "Then perhaps," Maya said gently, "we can learn together." Their eyes met across the room, two broken people seeing each other clearly for the first time. After that night, something shifted. Jake still wasn't warm. Decades of emotional armor couldn't dissolve overnight. But he tried, small gestures that probably seemed insignificant to others, but meant the world to Maya. He started joining her for breakfast. They didn't talk much at first, but his presence was acknowledgement. "I see you. You matter." He asked about her day, actually listened to her answers. He showed her the estate, the stables, the tenant farms, the hidden corners of the gardens he'd loved as a child. One afternoon, he even smiled, just a slight quirk of his lips when she made a joke about the overly formal dining room portraits, but it transformed his whole face. Maya started to see glimpses of the man he'd been before grief crushed him. 3 weeks after the music room reconciliation, Maya woke to find a note slipped under her door. "Meet me in the music room tonight, 10 p.m. Jay." Her heart raced all day. At precisely 10 p.m., she entered the music room wearing her favorite evening dress. Jake stood by the piano, nervous in a way she'd never seen. "I wanted to play something for you," he said, "if you'd like." "I'd love that." He lifted the violin, took a breath, and began. The piece was beautiful, soaring and hopeful, nothing like the grief-stricken music from before. It spoke of new beginnings, second chances, fragile hope. When it ended, Maya had tears in her eyes. "That was stunning. I composed it. For you." Jake set down the violin carefully. "I don't know how to say what I need to say with words, so I tried music instead." "What are you trying to say?" He walked to her slowly, stopping just close enough that she could feel his warmth. "That I'm sorry for the coldness, the rules, the distance, for making our marriage a prison instead of a partnership." "Jake, please let me finish." He took a shaky breath. "I was so terrified of losing you that I pushed you away first." Classic cowardice. "But these past weeks, getting to know you, Maya, you are extraordinary, kind, patient, creative, strong. Everything I'm not." "That's not true." "I'm broken," he said simply. "I've been broken for 20 years. I don't know if I can be fixed, but I want a treat for you." Maya reached up, gently touching his face the first time she'd initiated physical contact. He leaned into her palm like a man starved for touch. "You're not broken," she whispered. "You're healing. There's a difference." And then, for the first time in their marriage, Jake kissed her properly. Not the cold, perfunctory kiss from their wedding. A real kiss. Tender, uncertain, full of longing and hope and fear and desire, all tangled together. When they broke apart, Jake rested his forehead against hers. I don't know how to be a good husband, but I want to learn. Then let's learn together. That night, the connecting door between their chambers stayed unlocked. Here's a question. What happens when a man who's never been vulnerable finally opens his heart? Watch closely because the fall is harder than anyone expected. The next few months were the happiest Maya had ever known. Jake gradually shed layers of his armor. He laughed more, touched her freely, holding her hand during walks, kissing her goodnight, small moments of affection that felt revolutionary. They had real conversations about books, politics, estate management. He valued her opinions, implemented her suggestions, treated her like a true partner. In public, society was stunned. The cold Duke of Ashford smiled at his wife, danced with her at balls, clearly adored her. It's a miracle, Lady Eleanor told Maya during a visit. I never thought I'd see Jake Horton look at anyone with such tenderness. But privately, Maya noticed cracks forming. Jake had nightmares, terrible ones. She'd wake to find him gasping, then covered in sweat, eyes wild. When she tried to comfort him, he'd pull away, retreating behind walls she thought had crumbled. What do you dream about? She asked one night after a particularly bad episode. Losing people I love, he admitted roughly. My mother dying while I couldn't save her. My father's cruelty. And now losing you. I'm not going anywhere. You don't know that. People leave, people die. Caring about them just means more pain when they're gone. So you'd rather feel nothing? I'd rather protect myself. That's not living, Jake, that's existing. They fought more frequently, not about household matters or social obligations, but about feelings. Jake would open up, share something vulnerable, then panic and retreat. Maya would push for more intimacy, and he'd shut down completely. I'm trying, he shouted during one particularly brutal argument. What more do you want from me? I want you to trust me, Maya shot back. I want you to believe that I won't abandon you if you show me all of yourself, not just the pretty parts. I don't have pretty parts. I'm damaged goods pretending to be whole. You're a man with trauma learning to heal. That's not the same as being broken. Jake stared at her, breathing hard. You don't understand. My father spent years drilling into me that emotion is weakness, that love is vulnerability, that caring about people gives them power to destroy you. Your father was wrong. Was he? Because right now, you have complete power over me. If you left, it would destroy me. Loving you is the most dangerous thing I've ever done. The confession hung between them. Then why do it? Maya asked quietly. Because I can't stop. God help me, I've tried, but you've become essential, and that terrifies me. The breaking point came unexpectedly. Maya had gone into town for shopping, a routine trip she made weekly, but the roads were muddy from recent rain, and the carriage wheel hit a rut hard. The driver lost control. The carriage tipped. Maya was thrown, hitting her head on the doorframe. The footman helped her out, frantic. She was dazed but conscious, blood trickling from a cut on her temple. Get her to the manor, someone shouted. Fetch the Duke. By the time they reached Ashford Manor, word had spread. Jake came running from the stables where he'd been, face white with terror. He reached the carriage just as they were helping Maya down. The sight of blood on her face made him stumble. Maya, I'm all right, she said quickly, seeing his panic. Just a small cut, nothing serious. But Jake couldn't hear her, couldn't see past the blood. All he saw was his mother dying of consumption, coughing blood, wasting away while he watched helplessly. Your Grace, she needs to sit. Jake swept Maya into his arms, carrying her into the manor. Mrs. Hall called for the physician. Servants scattered. He took her to her chambers, set her on the bed with trembling hands. Jake, I'm fine. You're bleeding. His voice sounded hollow. It's just a scratch. You could have died. But I didn't. You could have died. The words broke on a sob. The physician arrived, examined Maya, confirmed it was indeed just a minor cut requiring a few stitches. She'd have a headache for a few days, but was otherwise perfectly fine. Jake stood in the corner, watching with haunted eyes. After the physician left and the servants dispersed, Maya reached for him. "Come here." He approached like a man walking to the gallows. "I'm all right," she said gently. "See? A few stitches. I'll have a small scar, but nothing serious." "This time," Jake whispered. "But next time, there might not be a next time. Or there will be. An accident, an illness, something I can't control." His hands fisted. "I can't do this, Maya. I can't love you and live in constant terror of losing you. Jake, I should never have married you, never dragged you into my damaged life. You deserve better. Someone whole, someone who can love you without this crushing fear." "You're not making sense." "I'm making perfect sense." He turned away. "I was right from the beginning. Distance is safer. Wolves are clearer. If I don't let myself care, losing you won't destroy me." "But you do care. You can't take that back." "Then I'll learn not to." The words hit like ice water. "You're going to shut me out again? After everything?" "It's the only way I know how to survive." Jake walked to the connecting door, paused. "I'm glad you're safe, truly, but I can't do this anymore. The intimacy, the vulnerability, it's killing me." "Jake, please." "I'm sorry, Maya, I'm so sorry, but I'm not strong enough for this." He closed the door, locked it, and Maya was alone again. The weeks that followed were worse than the initial cold marriage, because now Maya knew what they could be, what they'd almost had. And watching Jake deliberately destroy it was agony. He went back to all his old habits, taking meals alone, avoiding her completely, speaking only when absolutely necessary. But it was different this time. There was pain in his eyes now, regret. This wasn't natural coldness. It was deliberate self-protection at enormous cost. The servants noticed. Mrs. Hall looked heartbroken. Sebastian sent worried letters. Maya tried everything. She left notes under his door, attempted to engage him in conversation. Even returned to the music room hoping to find him there. Nothing worked. Jake had rebuilt his walls higher and stronger than before. Lady Eleanor arrived unannounced 3 weeks into the renewed Cold War. She found Maya in the garden, sketching with trembling hands. "Tell me everything," Eleanor demanded. Maya did. All of it. The initial coldness, the breakthrough, the happiness, the accident, Jake's retreat. Eleanor listened with pursed lips. Then she stood. "Where is he?" "His study, but stay here." Eleanor marched into Ashford Manor like a general going to war. She didn't knock on Jake's study door, just pushed it open. Jake looked up from his desk, startled. "Lady Eleanor, you absolute fool. I beg your pardon. My niece married you to save her family. She could have resented you, hated you, made your life hell. Instead, she tried to understand you, to see past your walls, to love the man you'd buried under decades of fear. Lady Eleanor, you don't understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly. You're terrified. Your mother died, your father was cruel, and you learned to equate love with loss. So you push away anyone who gets close." Eleanor stepped forward. "But here's what you don't understand. Love isn't about avoiding pain. It's about choosing connection despite the risk. She almost died. She got a minor cut in a carriage accident. People don't live in bubbles, Your Grace. Risks exist, but so does joy, partnership, intimacy, family. Are you really willing to sacrifice all of that because you're afraid, Beto? If I lose her, I'd say, you've already lost her by pushing her away. At least if tragedy strikes naturally, you'd have had years of happiness to remember. This way, you'll have nothing but regret." Jake's face crumpled. "I don't know how to stop being afraid." "You don't stop. You feel the fear and love her anyway." Eleanor's expression softened. "Your mother didn't stop loving you because she knew she might die. She loved you fiercely until her last breath, because that's what love is, choosing someone over and over despite uncertainty. But the pain when she died, would you trade away every moment with her to avoid that pain?" The question struck deep. "No," Jake whispered, "never." "Then don't make Maya pay for your father's cruelty and your mother's tragedy. She deserves better. You deserve better." Eleanor left him sitting there, tears streaming down his face, finally confronting what he'd been running from for 20 years. Jake didn't leave his study for 2 days. Mrs. Hall brought food he barely touched. Thomas checked on him periodically, reporting back to worried servants that his grace was thinking. Maya wanted to go to him, but forced herself to wait. He needed to make this choice himself. On the third day Sebastian arrived, he walked straight to Jake's study, found his friend unshaven and exhausted, and sat down across from him. "You look like death." "I feel worse." "Good, you deserve to." Sebastian leaned back. "Eleanor sent me a letter, told me everything." "I'm a coward." "Yes." "I'm broken." "Yes." "I don't deserve Maya." "Absolutely not." Sebastian's expression softened. "But here's the thing, she chose you anyway. Despite everything, she saw something worth loving. Are you really so arrogant as to tell her she's wrong?" Jake laughed bitterly. "When you put it that way." "Jake, I'm going to tell you something your father should have said and never did." Sebastian leaned forward. "Being afraid doesn't make you weak. Running from fear is what makes you weak. Facing it, feeling all that terror and loving anyway, that's courage." "I don't feel courageous." "None of us do. We're all terrified of losing people we love. But we love them anyway because the alternative, living safe but empty, isn't really living." "What if I can't do it?" "Then you apologize, explain, and ask for help. Maya's not asking you to be perfect. She's asking you to be present." Jake dropped his head into his hands. "I've hurt her so much." "Yes, which is why you need to stop hiding and start fixing." That night, Maya was preparing for bed when she heard a soft knock on the connecting door. She froze, waited. Another knock. Then his voice. "Maya, may I come in?" Her hands shook as she opened the door. Jake stood there looking devastated, dark circles under his eyes, hair disheveled, still wearing yesterday's wrinkled clothes. "I need to tell you something," he said hoarsely. "And I need you to let me finish before you respond." "Can you do that?" Maya nodded, not trusting her voice. They sat by the fire and Jake stared into the flames. "When I was 12, my mother was diagnosed with consumption. The doctor said she had months. She lasted 7, getting weaker every day. I'd sit by her bedside playing violin while she faded. And the whole time I was terrified, not just of losing her, but of the pain I knew was coming. When she finally died, the grief was unbearable. I cried for days, and my father, he beat me. Said dukes don't weep. That emotion makes you vulnerable. That loving people gives them power to hurt you." Maya's hand flew to her mouth, but she stayed silent. "So I stopped feeling. It was the only way to survive. I became exactly what he wanted, cold, efficient, emotionless. And it worked. For 20 years I functioned perfectly, ran the estate, fulfilled my duties, felt nothing. Then you walked into my life." Jake's voice cracked. "And suddenly I felt everything. Joy, desire, hope, fear, especially fear. Because you woke up parts of me I thought were dead. And I knew that if I let myself love you fully, losing you would destroy me. So when the accident happened, I panicked, saw blood, and immediately returned to being that 12-year-old boy watching his mother die. And I ran, did the thing I swore I'd never do, became my father." He finally looked at her, tears streaming. "Maya, I don't know if I can promise I'll never be afraid. That fear is so deeply rooted, I'm not sure it can be fully extracted, but I can promise that I'll try. Try to be brave, try to stay present, try to love you the way you deserve despite the terror. I'm asking for a second chance, or maybe a 5th or 10th, I've lost count. But I'm asking if you can forgive me for being broken and love me while I try to heal." Silence. Maya took a shaky breath. "Are you finished?" "Yes." "Then let me say something." She reached for his hands. "Jake, I don't need you to be fearless. I need you to be honest. When you're afraid, tell me. When the nightmares come, wake me. When you want to run, stay and fight through it with me. I'm not asking for perfection. I'm asking for partnership, for you to trust that we can face whatever comes, together. I know loving me is terrifying. But Jake, living without you these past weeks, that was worse than any risk. I'd rather have you afraid and present than safe and absent. Jake sobbed, deep, wrenching sounds from a man finally releasing 20 years of grief. Maya pulled him into her arms, holding tight while he broke apart. He cried for his mother, for his lost childhood, for the years of loneliness, for almost losing Maya to his own fear. When the storm finally passed, he pulled back, wiping his eyes roughly. I love you, he said, raw, honest, unguarded. I've loved you from the moment you stood up to me instead of cowering. I've loved you through every moment of fear, and I'll love you until my last breath, however terrified that makes me. I love you too, Maya whispered. Your trauma, your fears, all of it. Not despite them, because they're part of you. And I choose you, Jake Horton, every complicated part. Their kiss was tender, tear-salted, and full of promise. That night, the connecting door stayed open, and for the first time in 20 years, Jake Horton slept peacefully. One more question. Can love truly heal decades of trauma? Watch what happens over the next year, because the transformation is stunning. Healing wasn't linear. Jake had good days where he was present, affectionate, genuinely happy, and bad days where the fear came roaring back and he wanted to retreat. But the difference was, he didn't run anymore. On bad days, he'd tell Maya, I'm struggling today, the fear is loud. And she'd respond, I'm here. We'll get through it together. They developed routines, morning walks where they talked about everything and nothing, evening music sessions where Jake played and Maya sang, quiet nights reading by the fire. Jake slowly learned to recognize his fear responses and name them instead of acting on them. When nightmares came, he'd wake Maya and they'd talk until dawn. They attended therapy, something almost unheard of for aristocracy, but Sebastian recommended a discreet physician who specialized in trauma. It helped immensely. The estate flourished under their joint management. Maya's compassion balanced Jake's efficiency. Together, they improved tenant conditions, modernized operations, and became beloved by their community. Society noticed the change. The cold Duke had become warm, approachable. He smiled easily, laughed openly, and clearly adored his Duchess. It's almost unnerving, one nobleman joked at a ball. Jake Horton having feelings. What's next, the Thames flowing backward? But Sebastian, watching them dance with obvious love, just smiled. His broken friend had finally found home. 15 months after their wedding, Maya made an announcement. Jake, I need to tell you something. They were in the music room, their space, where everything important happened. What is it? He set down his violin, immediately attentive. I'm pregnant. The words hung in the air. Jake's face cycled through emotions. Joy, terror, hope, fear, before settling on something Maya had never seen before. Pure, unguarded happiness. Truly? The physician confirmed it this morning. We're having a baby. Jake crossed to her in 3 strides, cupping her face gently. A baby. Wonder filled his voice. Then fear crept in. Are you well? Is everything all right? Do you need to rest? I'm perfectly healthy, but Jake, she covered his hands with hers. I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise you won't let the fear steal this joy. Our child deserves a father who's present, not one paralyzed by what-ifs. Jake took a shaky breath. That's asking a lot. I know, but you've come so far. Don't let old fears rob us of this miracle. He pulled her close, resting his hand on her still flat stomach. I promise I'll try. And when I fail, because I will fail sometimes, I promise to tell you and let you help. That's all I ask. The pregnancy was challenging for Jake. Every doctor visit sent his anxiety spiking. Every time Maya felt tired or ill, he panicked. The fear of losing her the way he'd lost his mother was overwhelming. But he kept his promise. He told her when the fear was bad, let her comfort him, attended therapy sessions about preparing for fatherhood with trauma. And slowly, the joy began to outweigh the fear. Jake became obsessed with preparing. He renovated the nursery 3 times, interviewed dozens of potential nurses, read every book on child rearing he could find. "You're going to be an incredible father," Maya told him one night, watching him carefully arrange toys in the nursery. "How do you know?" "Because you're choosing to be. Despite your fear, despite your trauma, you're choosing love. That's what makes someone a good parent." 9 months later, on a snowy December night, Maya went into labor. Jake was absolutely useless. He paced, panicked, nearly fainted when the midwife showed him blood. Sebastian had to physically restrain him from bursting into the birthing room. "Let them work," Sebastian said firmly. "Maya's strong, she'll be fine." "You don't know that. Neither do you, so we wait, together." The hours were torture. Every cry from the birthing room made Jake's heart stop. Finally, as dawn broke, a baby's cry pierced the air. The midwife emerged, smiling. "Your Grace, you have a healthy son, and her Grace is tired but well." Jake's legs nearly gave out from relief. Sebastian clapped his shoulder. "Go meet your son." Jake entered the room slowly, almost reverently. Maya lay in bed looking exhausted and radiant, holding a tiny bundle. When she saw him, she smiled. Brilliant and beautiful. "Come meet Daniel," she said softly. Jake approached like a man in a dream. Looked down at his son, tiny, red-faced, perfect, and felt something inside him crack open completely. All the fear, all the walls, all the careful control, gone. In its place, pure, overwhelming love. "He's perfect," Jake whispered, voice breaking. "He is. Would you like to hold him?" Jake's hands trembled as Maya carefully transferred the baby. The weight was so light, the life so precious. Daniel opened his eyes, storm gray like his father's, and Jake broke. Tears streamed down his face. Not tears of grief like when his mother died, but tears of joy, of hope, of love so intense it hurt. "Hello, my son," he managed. "I'm your father, and I promise, I swear on my life, I will never be cold to you, never shut you out, never make you afraid to feel. I will love you with everything I am, fear and all, because you deserve nothing less." Maya was crying too. "Jake, thank you," he said, looking at her with such tenderness it made her chest ache. "Thank you for being patient, for seeing through my walls, for teaching me how to love again. You saved me, Maya, you and this beautiful boy." "We saved each other," she corrected. The days that followed were exhausting and magical. Jake was a devoted father from day one. He learned to change nappies, walked Daniel for hours when he cried, sang to him in the music room. The cold Duke who'd once demanded silence and distance became a man who openly wept watching his son sleep, who kissed his wife at breakfast, who laughed freely. "It's unsettling," Sebastian joked during a visit. "Jake Horton displaying emotion. I barely recognize you." "Good," Jake said, holding Daniel while Maya rested. "That man needed to die. This one is much better." On their second wedding anniversary, Maya found Jake in the music room with Daniel, playing gentle lullabies. She stood in the doorway watching her husband, this man who'd once terrified her, gently rock their son while making music. Jake noticed her and smiled. Warm, open, real. "Do you remember our wedding night?" he asked quietly. "How could I forget?" "Do not question me. I was such a fool, so terrified of feeling anything that I nearly destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me. But you didn't. You found your way back. We found our way back, together." Jake stood, still holding Daniel. "I used to think my father was right. That emotion was weakness, but he was wrong. This?" He gestured between them to their son. "This is strength, choosing to love despite the fear, building a family despite the risk. This is courage." Maya crossed to him, and they stood together, husband, wife, and child, in the room where everything had changed. "Thank you for not giving up on me," Jake whispered. "Thank you for learning to let me in." They kissed, soft and sweet, while Daniel slept peacefully in his father's arms. The Duke who'd once snapped, "Do not question me," had learned the greatest lesson of all. Love requires vulnerability. Vulnerability requires courage. And courage is choosing connection despite the cost. And in the end, that made all the difference. 5 years later, the halls of Ashford Manor rang with laughter. Daniel had grown into a bright, joyful boy who loved music as much as his father. Maya was pregnant with their second child. And Jake was unrecognizable from the cold Duke who'd once walked those halls. He smiled easily, played with his son in public, kissed his wife without reservation, led with compassion instead of distance. One evening as they sat in the music room, Daniel learning violin, Maya knitting, Jake reading, Eleanor visited. She stood in the doorway, watching the scene, and felt tears prick her eyes. This was what she'd hoped for when she pushed Maya toward this marriage. Not the initial coldness, but this warmth, this love, this family. Jake noticed her and smiled. Lady Eleanor, join us? I wouldn't want to intrude. You could never intrude. You helped save us. As Eleanor settled into a chair, watching this beautiful family she'd helped create, she thought about how close they'd come to disaster. One moment, one command. Do not question me. It had nearly cost Jake everything, but Maya had questioned anyway, had pushed through his walls with gentleness and strength, had taught him that love wasn't something to fear, but something to embrace. And in doing so, she'd given him back his life, because sometimes the bravest thing we can do is let someone see us, truly see us, in all our broken, frightened, imperfect glory. And sometimes, if we're very lucky, they choose to love us anyway. So that's how 3 words, do not question me, almost destroyed the greatest love Duke Jake Horton would ever know. Maya Benson could have accepted his coldness, could have lived a safe, distant, loveless marriage. Instead, she fought for him, saw past his walls to the broken man underneath, and refused to give up. Jake could have stayed frozen forever, could have let fear win. Instead, he chose the harder path, vulnerability, honesty, healing. Their story proves that trauma doesn't have to define us, that walls can be dismantled, that love is worth the risk. What would you have done in Maya's position? Would you have fought for a cold Duke or given up? Let me know in the comments below. And if you love this emotional Regency romance about healing, vulnerability, and choosing love over fear, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell because I have more incredible historical romance stories coming your way. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the greatest strength is admitting you're afraid and loving anyway.